2025 has come to a close, so it is officially that time to go through all the games I played. This is a year that I've played the most titles in my entire life. There are a total of 25 games for me to go through in today's video, ranging from horror games, indie titles, massive RPGs, and some of the biggest IPs in gaming. There are some games here that cracked my top 20, top 10, top 5, and there's a game that I played this year that might just be my new favorite game of all time. This was an absolutely stacked year of gaming for me, and I have loved every second of it. I want to thank all of you guys who have watched any of my videos throughout this year and have supported the page. This is my second full year doing YouTube, and I've had amazing moments throughout. You guys are the best, and here's to an even bigger 2026. Before we get into things though, if you guys do enjoy this video, it would mean a lot if you could like, comment, and subscribe, as we are trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. But with that, we'll be ranking every game I played this year, and we'll be starting all the way back in January. All years start off the same, and this one was no different with the month of January. The very first game that I played this year was Batman Arkham Knight. I played through Arkham Asylum and Arkham City a few years ago, but for some reason I never completed the trilogy in playing Arkham Knight. But I thought it was finally around that time to finish, honestly, one of the better trilogies in gaming. Starting off with the combat, it follows the same trend as Asylum and City, as this is one of my favorite combat systems ever. It is a very basic combat system, I'm not going to deny that, but they perfect the simplicity within it. All you do is punch, parry, dodge, and it's the greatest thing ever. It all connects together so well, and you really just reach this flow state at times, and having the different gadgets as well just make the combat even better. But I also think one of the most impressive aspects of Arkham Knight is its presentation. This game is over a decade old, and it still is one of the prettiest games I've ever played. That is absurd for a title that came out in 2015. Just everything about it, from the weather, the way the water reflects off the ground, the neon light signs, it is beautiful. But to move into an aspect I'm a little bit more mixed on, we have the Batmobile. A lot of fans just outright don't like the Batmobile, which I think is a little bit too extreme of a take. I think mechanically the Batmobile works really well. I just think it's way too overused. And to briefly touch on the narrative here, since I don't want to get into spoilers, I think Batman's internal conflict is fantastic here. I absolutely adore his dynamic with Joker, and I think the Arkham Knight is a really good villain. Overall, I think Arkham Knight is a fantastic conclusion to the Arkham trilogy. So to pull up the 2025 gaming tier list, Batman Arkham Knight is going to slide itself comfortably into the B tier. But I did go and play a second game in the month of January, and it was probably my favorite horror game of all time, and that is Silent Hill 2. If you've been aware of the horror genre within video games, you probably have heard of Silent Hill 2 and the constant glaze that it receives. People don't even just regard it as one of the best horror games of all time, people regard it as one of the best video games, period. And after playing it, it really did live up to the hype. I don't know if I would call it one of my favorite games ever, but this really is a masterpiece. I am keeping this video spoiler free, so it is a little bit hard to fully explain why Silent Hill 2's narrative is as good as it is, but I'll try my best. The way that Silent Hill as a town is represented throughout the narrative and portrayed to you as a player is so interesting. It is one of the coolest concepts I've seen from a setting ever, and learning about it throughout the game is a fantastic experience. And I also think James Sunderland is a phenomenal main character, and learning more about him as the story progresses is so enjoyable. I think that is really one of the best aspects of Silent Hill 2 as a whole. There really is such a mystery within the town and the characters that you meet throughout that you really are trying to unravel. I also think the gameplay in terms of the puzzles, the exploration, the combat are very engaging and keep a good gameplay loop. This title is also just such an eerie experience. You really never feel like there's a single moment ever to relax. Overall, Silent Hill 2 is a masterpiece in storytelling, and I fully understand why some people have it as one of their favorite games ever, if not the best. To place this onto the tier list is going comfortably into the A tier. But those were the two games that I played in January, so it's time to move on to February. And the first game that I played this month is one of the biggest games of all time, and that is Skyrim. It is amazing that it took me this long to play Skyrim. The only excuse that I can give is the fact that I wanted to play Morrowind and Oblivion before I played this one. I was very excited to play Skyrim, but I was trying my best to tamper my expectations because I didn't think I was going to love it as much as other people did. I really deeply believe that Skyrim was one of those titles that you had to be there for it. It was a time and a place. Me playing this in 2025 was never going to have the same experience as someone did back then. And I think I was kind of right. I still think Skyrim is a fantastic game, but it is nowhere close to one of my favorite games ever. And I think it is my least favorite Elder Scrolls game. I think Morrowind and Oblivion are substantially better in most ways. But don't get me wrong, Skyrim still has its charm and aspects it does really well. And I think the place where Skyrim shines most is with its world. Exploring the world of Skyrim is truly one of a kind, and even all these months after, I still long to go back to that place. I don't have any really big desire to revisit this game, but for some reason whenever I hear the music or see an edit of it on like TikTok or something, I long to go back to the world and it doesn't make sense. I feel this sense of nostalgia, and it's only been 10 months since I played the game. I fully understand why people love Skyrim as much as they do. Just playing it for the first time in 2025 leaves a lot to be desired in the grand scheme of RPGs. I think in terms of RPG mechanics, it pales in comparison to Morrowind and Oblivion. I find the narrative and characters to be fairly forgettable, but even with all of its shortcomings, it is still such an experience to simply be in the world and explore it. Overall, Skyrim is an extremely flawed game in my mind, but I can't deny the charm that it does have. On the tier list, I'm going to put Skyrim into the B tier, right below Arkham Knight. This title did take up most of the month, so I wanted to play a small indie game to finish off the month of February, and that title is Road 96. Road 96 was probably the biggest surprise for me this entire year. I always make sure to play a good amount of indie games as they probably offer some of the most unique experiences I get in gaming. And Road 96 is no different. The premise of this game is a story about teenagers who are trying to flee the country of Petria. Political tensions are high as it is occurring during a presidential election. So you play through this game as a bunch of different random unnamed teenagers trying to cross the border and escape. And to do this, we go through a bunch of different procedurally generated road trips while we meet a wide cast of characters. This is one of the most unique concepts I've ever seen from a game, and I love watching all these different character arcs for these people as we go through different trips as different characters. There's a wide range of different gameplay mechanics, there's a lot of choice variety. This game is really just fantastic. There are so many different outcomes for all the characters and the narrative at hand. I just love the uniqueness of every single run and not knowing who you're gonna meet with. Overall, this was easily some of the most fun I had with a game this entire year. So on the tier list, I'm going to slide Road 96 right into the B tier as well. But that's all I did for February, so let's jump over to March. And the first game I played this month was another indie game, and that is Jusant. Jusant was no game that was gonna blow my socks off. It wasn't some groundbreaking experience, but it was a really pleasant time. From the music, the atmosphere, the graphics, it just all had a really nice feeling to it. Like, I really enjoyed the quiet and peaceful energy that the game brought. And surprisingly, the climbing mechanics were pretty engaging, and I liked how that gameplay continued to evolve as you played the game. I just had a really good time climbing up this massive mountain. I felt like each different area was so unique to one another, and I loved reading the notes, learning about the history of this location. Jusant overall was simply a good time. I got the game for cheap, it was quick, and I liked my time with it. On the tier list, we are going to slide Jusant comfortably into the C tier. And with that, we can move over to our next game that I played in the month of March, and that is BioShock 2. This holds a fairly similar story compared to my experience with the Arkham franchise, as the first BioShock is easily one of my favorite games of all time, and I played that years ago. And for some reason, I just never went ahead and played BioShock 2 or Infinite, but that did change this year as I did play both of them. And starting off with BioShock 2, I think this is like extremely underrated. I feel like when we talk about the BioShock franchise, this game doesn't really get mentioned. And I don't know why. I love so many aspects that this game has to offer. In this game, you play as a Big Daddy who awakens a decade after dying, and you are in pursuit of the little sister that you were with back then. I really do enjoy the narrative here, and I think it explores some really cool aspects about Rapture as a whole. And talking about Rapture, it's one of my favorite settings in gaming, and I like seeing this more decayed aspect about it a decade after. It is just easily one of the best worlds in gaming, and this sequel is no different to the original. I also think Sophia Lamb is a fairly good antagonist. She's no Andrew Ryan, do not get me wrong, but I think she serves the story fairly well here. I loved being able to use the drill as the Big Daddy, and I loved all the weapons that we got to use throughout. Overall, Bioshock 2 does not reach the level of the first game, but that is a very high bar to reach. This is a great sequel that stands on its own in a multitude of ways. On the tier list is going to be a mid-B tier. But moving into the last game I played this month, we have Bioshock Infinite. I was wasting no time here. I was gonna finish the series. And Bioshock Infinite very much stands on its own compared to Bioshock 1 and 2, which hold a lot of similarities. And the main way they do that is moving away from Rapture. The only reason I'm okay with them doing that is because I think Columbia is also a phenomenal setting. I love the complete 180 of how Rapture is this underwater city and Columbia is this city in the skies. It's definitely not better than Rapture, but it really does serve its purpose well here. The place where I think Bioshock Infinite shines the most is within its combat and traversal. This is just by far the best in the franchise. With it being a city in the skies, they offer a lot more versatility in the movement. The combat as well is just extremely faster paced, which I really do enjoy. The only aspect I might not like as much is the fact that we're only allowed to carry 2 weapons at once. I'd much rather just be able to carry all of them at the same time. But I think that decision was probably done to keep the fast-paced nature of the combat. And in terms of the narrative, I think it is pretty good. I do think at some parts it gets a bit convoluted and I was lost a good portion of the game. That might just be my fault and my stupidity, but that's kind of how it felt for me. But the ending is unbelievable and it really does mess with your mind and it ties the entire game up really well. But my only other negative is that I really didn't care for the characters all that much. Overall, Bioshock Infinite moves away from what the previous 2 titles did and succeeded in doing so, with a really enjoyable game for the most part. But for me personally, on the tier list is going into the B tier, right above Bioshock 2. But those are all the games I played in the month of March, so it is about that time to move into the next month, which is April. And the first game I played this month was Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'll just say this right off the bat, this was my least favorite game of the entire year. And I feel bad because I don't think it's inherently because Assassin's Creed Shadows is a bad game. I honestly think it does a few aspects better compared to the past few Assassin's Creed games. But I have grown so unbelievably tired and burnt out on whatever Ubisoft is trying to do with this franchise now. I just feel no passion or enjoyment whatsoever playing these games. I don't care about the story, the characters are boring. Like, I just can't get invested whatsoever. I will admit I think the gameplay is fairly decent here and I had a good time with the stealth. The world is also beautiful as always, but it's really not that fun to explore. And feudal Japan is an awesome setting, but I felt less immersed with this one as I did with previous settings in the franchise. Overall, I just really don't like this game. I just feel the entire time, like there's no enjoyment in it whatsoever. Overall, I do not think Assassin's Creed Shadows is inherently a bad game. I think it's decent, but my enjoyment with it was actually at an all-time low. On the tier list for Assassin's Creed Shadows, I am going to put it into the D tier. I only ended up playing 2 games this month, but the second game that I did play in April is Detroit Become Human. I am a massive fan of choice-based games, so it was finally about that time I played one of the biggest ever. And on a gameplay level, this is probably the best choice game ever. And what I mean by that is the variety in decision making is scary. Every single time you finish a mission and then you see that chart of all the different possibilities you could have gone down, it stresses me out. It's like way too much. I don't think the narrative is anything special, but I still think it is pretty good, and I liked a lot of the conflicts that went on throughout. And I love all 3 different storylines that we have in this game with Connor, Marcus, and Kara. I think they are all great. Each one has their own charm and spin on the story at hand, and they are just all overall very enjoyable. Overall, Detroit Become Human shines in its decision making, and that's what makes the game as good as it is. On the tier list is going comfortably in the B tier. But with that, let's move into May. And the first game I played this month was a generational one, and that is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I'm not trying to hype myself up or anything, but I was very excited for this game before it even came out. From all the trailers that were releasing, this game looked like it could be generational. But my expectations were fairly controlled. I was not expecting it to reach the levels it did whatsoever. In my mind, I was like, okay, if this can give me like an 8, an 8.5 out of 10 experience, I'll be so happy. What I wasn't expecting was one of the greatest games that I have ever played. From the second I saw that title screen and heard the music, I knew this game was going to be different. In all aspects, from the narrative, the combat, the world, the characters, they nail it all. I am a massive fan of turn-based combat, and seeing this twist on it was really enjoyable. I know this isn't the first game ever to use real-time aspects like parrying and dodging within the turn-based genre, but I think they did a great job with it. The only deterrent from that is that it really does take back from the strategy side of turn-based combat that I really do enjoy. And in terms of the narrative, it is breathtaking. From the second you start the game to when you finish, it just keeps going and going. It is an unbelievable experience. Basically, the premise of this game is that there is this paintress, and every year that paintress paints a new number, and anyone that is that age dies. And that number decreases every single year, and they have people that go on expeditions trying to take her out. And genuinely, the twists and turns that this narrative takes throughout, it blows my mind. My only complaint that I would probably have with this game is that I think the final act is fairly rushed, and the final boss is scaled really poorly. Outside of that, this was one of the greatest gaming experiences that I have ever had, and it easily deserved that Game of the Year. On the tier list, this is the first game of the video that is going into the S tier, and it won't be the last. Expedition 33 took up most of May, so I just finished off the month with a smaller game, and that is Halo Combat Evolved. I meant small in terms of the length, as the Halo franchise is one of the biggest in gaming history. I don't know how I'm able to call myself an Xbox player when I have not played the biggest franchise on its console, but here I am doing it for the first time. Look, this game is one of the pioneers when it comes to modern first-person shooters. It paved the way for games in the future. But if we're being so for real, playing it for the very first time now, comparing it to other first-person shooters today, it just doesn't hold up the same way. I will say, for how old it actually is, it does hold up fairly well. The fact that I'm still able to enjoy the combat and have a good time with this game is impressive. But the level design is just bad. It's extremely repetitive with the same corridors over and over again. The game is definitely at its best when you're in an open area outside. And in terms of the narrative, I just couldn't care about it whatsoever, even though that's not the focus as much with this game. Overall, it really is a pioneer in the gaming world, and I can notice that and appreciate it. But playing this for the first time now is nowhere close to one of the best first-person shooters, but it's still a good game. On the tier list, I'm going to put Halo Combat Evolved into the C tier. I'm gonna preface this again. The C tier means that these are good games. Me putting it in the middle of the C tier still means I think Halo Combat Evolved is a good game. Please don't hate me. But with that, we are moving into June. And the first game that I played this month is also a generational one, and that is Persona 4 Golden. I played my first ever Persona game last year in Persona 3 Reload, and it became one of my favorite games ever. It's third on my all-time list. So to say my expectations were high for Persona 4 would be an understatement. And even with my sky-high expectations, they were completely met in every way imaginable. The premise of this game is that you are a transfer student into this small town called Inaba, and there is a murder case going on and you must solve this murder mystery. You build up your cast over time, you have these powers called personas, and you are able to enter a TV to solve the case. I think my favorite aspect of Persona 4 Golden are its social links and its cast. They truly just feel like the best friend group imaginable. I love their friendship so much throughout, and just watching them interact throughout the game is so much fun. Those slice of life moments that you get with them throughout the game are probably my favorite moments throughout. I also think the theme of this game is fantastic, just like all the Persona games. The themes of this game is to seek the truth and accept your true self for all the good and the bad, to accept all of it and be proud of it. It is a very touching theme, and I think they do such a good job of representing that through all the different characters throughout. I just think the only place where this game falters is with its gameplay and dungeons. These things are like astronomically mediocre. Especially after playing Persona 5, you realize like, oh yeah, these just aren't that good. They don't completely deter from the experience, but they're definitely a drag at times. And it goes without saying that it has one of the best soundtracks of all time. Overall, Persona 4 Golden is up there for one of the best games that I have ever played. I could not take my hands off this game. It was a life-changing experience, and I loved every single aspect of it. On the tier list, I'm going to be putting Persona 4 Golden right up into the S tier, right behind Expedition 33. But with that, we move into the next game that I finished up in June, and that is Split Fiction. Now, Split Fiction is a funny one because this was a game that I started like right when it came out in March, I think. But playing this with my friend definitely delayed the experience of actually beating it. But getting into it, I am an absolute sucker for co-op games. In terms of pure gameplay, not many do it better than Split Fiction. This one might do it the best. The level design and gameplay variety that is offered here is unbelievable. It does the co-op genre perfectly with its mechanics. I absolutely loved going back and forth between the sci-fi and fantasy worlds, and I loved all the side worlds that it had to offer as well. Like, this was genuinely just such a blast to play. You really had to work together with whoever you were playing with to complete each level. And I also found the boss fights to be pretty fun as well. My only complaints is that the story and characters are pretty forgettable. But when the gameplay is as good as it is, I don't care how bad the story is. And also, the last level of the game has some of the most unique gameplay that I've ever seen from a game before. Overall, Split Fiction is just an amazing co-op game from top to bottom. On the tier list, it is floating right between the mid to high B tier. But that is all I played for the month of June, so we move into the prime of summer, and that is July. And I somehow only played one game this month. But that was Bloodborne. I swear this happens every summer where I'm like, oh my gosh, so much free time, I'm out of school, this is going to be awesome, I'm going to be playing so many games. And then I'm just like working the entire summer and I barely play anything. And this month is kind of evident of that. But Bloodborne was the very first Souls game that I have ever beaten. My only other experience with the Souls genre was 6 years ago when I tried Sekiro for a few hours and gave up because it was too hard. I was weary going into Bloodborne because I wasn't sure how I would enjoy the difficulty of the game. But that wasn't an issue whatsoever. I adored this title. This game was still definitely difficult, but it was easier than I was expecting it. Some bosses definitely still gave me a hard time though. The only other game I could compare this to is like Black Myth Wukong, and for some reason I had a harder time with that game than Bloodborne. But actually getting into it, this is easily one of the best worlds and atmospheres I have ever experienced in a video game. They absolutely nail the Lovecraftian horror. It is just a beauty to explore and experience. I also think the gameplay is fantastic with the gun, being able to use that to parry, and all the different weapons you have in their different forms. I think my only complaint with this game is that I felt like the bosses left a lot to be desired. Some of the bosses though are some of the best that I've ever experienced in a video game. Like the second to last boss that I faced in this title, generational. It was an unbelievable experience. And this is definitely more of a personal complaint because I know Souls games aren't like this, but I would have enjoyed a bit more of a coherent story to go along with it. Because when I beat the game, I'm like, okay, I beat it. What does that mean? Again, that's more of a personal issue. That's not necessarily a knock on the game itself. But overall, Bloodborne was a fantastic experience as my first ever Souls game that I beat, and I can't wait to play more games in the genre. On the tier list, Bloodborne is going straight into the high B tier. But that is all we did for July, so we move over to our next month, which is August. And the first game I played this month was Halo 2. My goal this year was to go through the original Halo trilogy, which I did. And in talking about Halo 2, I think there are major improvements on the first title. I think the level design is immensely better. I don't know if I would outright call it great, but it is definitely improved from the first game. And I also enjoy how the storyline starts to take more of a shape. We start learning about the world more, some of the lore, different groups of people. I enjoy that part a lot. And I also really enjoy getting another character outside of the Chief. I loved going back and forth between the Chief's missions and the Arbiter. But I think the execution of it was a bit off, as the pacing for most of the game definitely felt weird. Like, I feel like it struggled to build momentum throughout the game because we were jumping back and forth so often. And I also absolutely adore the cinematics that we got in this game, and the gameplay definitely improved but remained fairly similar compared to the first one. Overall, Halo 2 is definitely an improvement on the first game, but I don't think it's a massive one at that. So on the tier list, it's going to fall into the high C tier. But moving into the second game I played this month, we finished up the trilogy with Halo 3. And at long last, I finally fell in love with one of the Halo titles. I had a fun time with Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2. I thought they were good games. But Halo 3, oh my gosh, I really got into this one. I think it's easily the best out of the trilogy. For some reason, each mission just flowed together so much better compared to the other titles. I genuinely could not stop playing it. I just wanted to keep going through the next mission over and over again. The level design is easily the best out of the trilogy at this point, with each level having its own feel and layout. And I also think we got to see more dynamics in this game. I really think they started to flesh out Cortana and Chief a bit more, which I really did enjoy. And overall, it's just a fantastic conclusion to the trilogy. The final mission of this game is just legendary. The soundtrack, all of it, it's perfect. Overall, Halo 3 is just a great game across the board and is easily the best out of the original 3 Halo titles. On the tier list, Halo 3 is going right into the mid B tier. With that, we move into the last game of August, and that is What Remains of Edith Finch. Now, unfortunately for me, this was probably my biggest disappointment of the year. Like with Assassin's Creed Shadows, I didn't have much faith that the game was going to be that great, but I actually thought What Remains of Edith Finch was going to be pretty good. And at least for me, it was just pretty mediocre. It was a walking sim, which I don't have any issues with whatsoever, but like I need to care about what's happening, and I just didn't that much with this game. I think the concept is cool, learning about your family history and going through memories of different family members throughout your lineage. And I think each one kind of has its own gameplay thing going on, which I do enjoy. But like, I just didn't care about any of it. None of it resonated with me. None of it stuck with me. It was just like, oh, okay. Like, people were talking about how they started crying at this game. Like, I genuinely did not have an ounce of emotion within me. And I'm someone that fairly easily cries at things. I'm not trying to sit here and say, oh, you're wrong for crying. If you resonate with it, I love that for you. But to give it like another good note or two, I think the art style is pretty cool, and I loved exploring the home itself and the intricacies of it. Overall though, for me at least, What Remains of Edith Finch was just a mediocre game. I beat it in one night and never thought about it again. On the tier list, What Remains of Edith Finch is going straight into the D tier, above Assassin's Creed Shadows. But those are all the games that I played in August. So with that, let's move into September. And the first game that I played this month was Witcher 2. I made sure to play this game because I wanted to build up the hype for my inevitable playthrough of Witcher 3, which I'm planning on doing in 2026. And it did just that. I loved this game. I adored the world, the characters. I absolutely loved the politics and everything that was going on throughout. There was just an abundance of world building that was going on, and I loved every aspect of it. Even though at times it did feel like a bit much and I got like a little confused at times with what was going on, people's motives and whatnot, it got a little confusing here and there. I also think Geralt is just a fantastic protagonist, and I just love the way that he acts throughout. But this game definitely has aged poorly in some aspects, like the gameplay for sure. I did not have a good time with the combat in this game whatsoever, but I do think they did some aspects cool, like some of the boss fights they gave like unique gameplay scenarios, which I did enjoy. And I do think the final act, including the ending, wavered a bit for me. It definitely like soured down my overall experience of the game. It wasn't like it was a bad ending, I just feel like it didn't live up to the first two acts. But each area is so fun to learn about, they're unique from one another, and there are a bunch of choices to make within each mission and side quests. There are actually challenging choices that you have to think about. Overall, Witcher 2 is a great game, and I fell in love with the world at hand, and I cannot wait to play Witcher 3 next year. On the tier list, Witcher 2 is going to fall right into the B tier. Now moving into the second game I played this month, I wanted a little bit of some early spooky energy, so we played another horror game, and that was Resident Evil 2. This was my first ever Resident Evil game. I own all the Resident Evil games, including the first, and I plan to go back to that one as my next one, but for some reason I just wanted to start off with 2, and I think the survival aspects here are extremely well done. I loved having to manage my ammo and my heals, and they felt scarce throughout the game. I love that feeling in horror games where you actually are feeling like you are trying to survive with the scraps that you have, and I think Resident Evil 2 did that well. I also think the bosses throughout were solid, and they were at their best when, again, I had scraps for the fight. I also think the puzzle solving was enjoyable and had a nice flow to it to keep the gameplay loop feeling fresh. I also liked having the 2 different playthroughs with Leon and Claire, but they felt too similar to me, and the timeline wise, it confuses me a bit of what actually happens at the same time and whatnot. But my issues with this game is that the story is fairly whatever, I really didn't get invested at all. It just felt like a really typical oh, zombie apocalypse, some scientist caused it. It wasn't that good. Overall, Resident Evil 2 is a really good horror game, but I don't think it's anything amazing. I don't think it reaches the level of some of my other favorites in the genre. So on the tier list, gosh, this might be controversial, I'm putting Resident Evil 2 into the low B tier. Please do not kill me over this. I still think this is a really good game. I just don't think this is some great horror game. But with that, we move into the last game I played for the month of September, and that is Katana Zero. This game right here, this is special. What an unbelievable experience. I'm someone that over time has kind of realized I'm not the biggest fan of side-scroller Metroidvania kind of titles. Even though this title really isn't a Metroidvania, it has that side-scroll 2D feel. But I absolutely fell in love with this game. The combat is truly addicting and is one of the most refreshing gameplay experiences I've ever had. It's just dopamine filling, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just so fast paced, you die, you go right back to the beginning, right back into it. It's so smooth and fluid, it's unbelievable. If you get a really good run, everything just flows together so naturally. And also the music is just phenomenal and plays into that gameplay experience so well. And the gameplay elements tie into the narrative so much, which I absolutely love. And the story itself is genuinely phenomenal. I had myself questioning and theorizing throughout the entire 5 to 6 hours I played of this game. It is an unbelievable story that really keeps you on your toes. My only complaint is that I wish there was more of it. I feel like it was too short. Overall, this is just an unbelievable indie title, and it's one of the best that I have ever played. On the tier list, Katana Zero is going straight into the A tier, right below Silent Hill 2. And with that, we move into the spooky month of the year, and that is October. And the first game I played this month was not a spooky game, as I decided to play Ghost of Yotei. This was easily one of my most anticipated games of the year, as I absolutely adore Ghost of Tsushima, and this title lived up to the hype in every imaginable way. This is truly a fantastic sequel across the board. I think the place where Ghost of Yotei shines most is with its world and exploration. It is just genuinely addicting. I would spend hours upon hours just roaming around the world on my horse doing side objectives. I just completely forgot there was a main story because I was just so engrossed with the world at hand. And the gameplay is equally as good as Tsushima, and it might be slightly better. I enjoyed having the different weapons over stances, and I feel like the combat was that little bit faster paced, which I liked more. But they definitely toned the stealth back, which I didn't like as much. And in terms of a narrative, it's definitely weaker in comparison, but it still has its strong points throughout. And I also think Atsu and the cast of characters are still really solid. I enjoy the journey that Atsu goes on throughout the story, and I think the side characters support that journey fairly well. Overall, Ghost of Yotei is a fantastic sequel, and I was addicted to it from the second I started until I beat it. On the tier list, Ghost of Yotei is going to the tippy top of the B tier. But with that, we move into the second and the only other game I played this month. And it is a horror game, and it is Soma. This game right here, this is something else. This is easily one of the best horror games that I have ever played. The narrative here is just straight up phenomenal. I really can't give too much away narratively because it would just spoil things, but I'll give a very vague premise. You are this guy named Simon and you go in for a brain scan. But once you wake up from that brain scan, you are in this underwater research facility. So you spend the game learning all the secrets of where you are and how you got there. I can't even begin to explain the twists and turns that this game takes. Because I was sat there like, oh, I know the plot twists they are gonna do, they're fairly predictable. But then they tell you those twists like very early on in the game and you're like, oh, that wasn't the twist? Where is this game going? They explore just some awesome themes and moral questions throughout this title, and they're just truly existential as they really explore the idea of life itself and what that even means. And once you finish the game, you are truly questioning reality itself. It is one of the best endings I've ever experienced in gaming. Like, you just straight up are questioning your own existence at this point. It is so unbelievably done. And on top of that, the atmosphere is eerie and uncomfortable. I enjoy it so much. The only negative side about this game that I can really find is the very minimal gameplay. I don't mind there not being that much gameplay, like there's no fighting in this game whatsoever, but I really wish they fleshed out maybe more stealth mechanics potentially. I think that would have improved the game a lot. Soma is easily one of the best horror games that I've ever played. It is a narrative masterclass. On the tier list, it is going straight into the A tier at the bottom. But that is that for the month of October, so we move into November. And the first game I played this month was Outer Worlds 2. I enjoyed the first Outer Worlds when it came out, so I was fairly excited to play this sequel. And there were improvements across the board. The gameplay is vastly better and genuinely enjoyable here. There is great gun variety throughout as they are all unique from one another. And the choices that you have throughout this game are genuinely impactful and change how the game is going to go. And your skill investments change a lot of what you can and can't do, so these things genuinely matter. But there are a fair amount of negatives for me as I felt like the game got weaker as I played it. Like, I felt like it started off pretty good, but I found myself enjoying it less and less as it went on. And I found the characters and cast throughout to be very uninteresting, which is sad because it worsens the dialogue and choices since I just don't care. Which sucks because the dialogue is genuinely really good, just the characters really diminish the enjoyment of it. And the narrative itself is whatever. I really couldn't get immersed or invested into it whatsoever at any point. Overall, Outer Worlds 2 definitely improves in a multitude of ways compared to the first game, but it still doesn't do anything to really give a lasting impact. On the tier list, the Outer Worlds 2 is going to find itself in the mid to low C tier. But with that, we move into the second to last game I played this year, and that is Dispatch. Again, what a surprise game for me. And I don't know why I was so surprised by it, as I adore choice-based titles. I played Detroit Become Human earlier this year. I adore the Telltale franchise. I love these types of games, and this was a great addition to the genre. In terms of like dialogue and choice variety, there isn't like an insane amount like other titles in the genre, but that doesn't really deter from the experience too much, as I really just love the story and characters so much. The cast of people throughout this game are just so easy to fall in love with, and they're just extremely funny. I enjoy all the interactions that they have with one another throughout this game, and it really is the best part about it. And the Dispatch like mini game itself was addicting. I would play an entire game with just that aspect. My only complaint is that I would want some more choice variety and just more dialogue within the game itself. But as a whole, this is probably some of the most fun I've had with a game this entire year, and I really do hope we get that second season. On the tier list, Dispatch is going straight into the B tier. Now, the last game I played this year, I started all the way back in the middle of November, and I beat it on Christmas Eve. And that game is Persona 5 Royal. Combining all the games I have in my backlog, Persona 5 Royal was easily my most anticipated game to play from that. Persona 3 and 4 are some of my favorite games ever. And after beating this game, putting in nearly 160 hours, I have to say this could potentially be my favorite game of all time. I want to get out of the way first, I don't think this game is perfect. I think there's aspects that Persona 3 and 4 do better. But as a collective title and taking in all aspects, I do think it is the best in the franchise. The premise of this game is that you follow this group of high schoolers who seek out to change the hearts of corrupted adults throughout the world to confess their crimes and change their ways. But the game is so much more than just that. The story really gets into some crazy places into the late game. To start things off, I think the gameplay is so massively improved here compared to the other titles in the series. The combat itself is the best. The palaces are so vastly better, it's not even funny. I was obsessed with these things. And I also think the life sim aspects itself were improved as well, with just a lot more variety and gameplay significance throughout. I also believe the pacing is immensely improved with a lot more story beats throughout the entire game. And I also think the theme and messaging is just fantastic and they explore so many different ideas. The main themes of this game is to have a will of rebellion to fight back against the corrupt world to regain the individuality of oneself. And the other theme that I think is as much of a focus where I don't feel like people talk about as much is the idea of confronting one's past. I think they explore both these themes in such unique ways throughout the entire title, and I just love the moral questions that are brought up throughout the game. Again, I also think the cast is unbelievable here. They're one of the best in gaming ever. And they also just have some of my favorite antagonists in recent memory. The OST is sheer perfection and has some of the best peaks in gaming I've ever seen, and there's multiple of them throughout the entire time. Overall, Persona 5 Royal is truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I think everyone should play this, and it honestly might be my new favorite game of all time. So on the tier list, it's not much of a surprise that it is going straight to the top of the S tier and was the best game that I played throughout this year. So here is my full tier list of the 25 games that I beat throughout the year of 2025. This was a memorable year of gaming for me, as I have played some of my favorite franchises in gaming and played some of the best games ever. I think I experienced a wide range of genres and got through such unique titles. I can't wait to see what's in store for me next year in terms of games I'm gonna play. From new releases to older games I've been dying to get to, there is so much in store for gaming and my YouTube channel as a whole, and I hope you guys stick around for the ride. Make sure to comment below any games you think I should play next year and what your favorite game you played this year was. Thank you all for an amazing 2025, and I will see you guys next year, even though this video probably came out in 2026. Yeah, this took longer than I expected to make.